Now, Quarry Place is maybe one of the nicest little streets in Shrewsbury. These wonderful Georgian houses. And yet again, I can find no paranormal connection to Quarry Place, although I'm sure there are. But this rather impressive building had in the past long past been a nursing home. And when I was due to be born, all the hospitals were full. And so I was actually born in this nursing home, on the NHS I might add, and delivered by a nurse Cherry apparently. That's all I know about it. Except I'd say I took some soil from the garden here, and that is under my mattresses both in Java and in Jakarta, because it's meant to be protection from black magic. Now this is a school I attended, the Priory Grammar School. Indeed, so did my father. My father was evacuated from Liverpool during the war and attended the Priory, along with Ken Dodd, I might add. And the Priory was established, I thought it was older than this, but it was established in 1910 on the site of the old Augustine Priory near the Welsh Bridge. I believe originally the Priory Girls was also a part of it before being moved more or less out of town. So when I attended, and I think when my dad attended, it was an all-boys school. Now, it wasn't a boarding school, it was just a grammar school. It was somewhere that, it wasn't fee-paying. But the atmosphere was very much like Hogwarts without the magic. Or, if you know the film, my favourite film, If, it reminded me an awful lot of that. It seemed to attract sadistic paedophiles as teachers. And I'd love to turn round and say, well, it never did us any harm. But I'm not too certain that would be a correct assessment. In terms of alumni, well, obviously there's Ken Dodd. Ian Hunter, from Mott the Hoople, he went there. I don't remember him. He's a fair bit older than me. I remember his daughter. Christopher Timothy, the actor, also went there. And, loads of people that I was very friendly with attended there. Oh, I should also mention the dungeons. Now, these sort of blocked up steps that you can see leading down to the river were known as the dungeons. And on my first day there, and my father's first day there, new boys were thrown down the steps and spat upon, maybe even peed on, and generally shouted and abused, maybe rocks thrown at them by the older boys. And it was known as an initiation ceremony. As I say, not certain it did us any harm, but maybe it did. Indulge me, this isn't a particularly interesting clip that I'm showing, but it means something to me. It's where I used to play cricket when I was at the Priory School. We used to walk up Board Hill to play cricket here. Unfortunately, hay fever got the better of me because at junior school I'd been by far the best batsman at the junior school. Not a very good bowler nor fielder, I might add, but certainly a very strong batsman indeed, thanks to my father practising with me extensively on the lawn in front of our shop. Well, now, indulge me a little again, because this is where I used to play rugby when at school. We had to walk a long way from the school to here. That was an exercise in itself. Now, I was never any good at rugby, but because I was little, they chose me to be hooker. And I remember the first scrum down, and I was facing Nobby Holland. The first thing he did was punch me in the face. I later became quite friendly with Nobby because we used to go to Wigan Casino and yate all-nighters together. But yeah, this is where I used to play rugby. And we used to have a Founders Day when the Priory boys and the Priory girls would get together, and we hardly ever got together because they were a long way apart in Shrewsbury. So it was the one opportunity we used to have to oogle at the Priory girls. Shrewsbury School is what we call in England a public school. That's an independent boarding school for pupils aged 13 to 18. I thought it was 11 to 18, but apparently it's 13 to 18. And I understand the sixth form now includes girls. Now, of course, the original site was where the library is, and the most famous pupil there was probably Charles Darwin, although maybe you could say it was Sir Philip Sidney. Indeed, it was founded in 1552 by Edward VI by royal charter. It had originally been a boarding school for boys. It was a boarding school for boys. Girls were admitted to the sixth form in 2008. It didn't move to the current site, which used to be the Shrewsbury Workhouse, until 1882, so on the other side of the River Severn. It's a Clarendon school, so it means it was mentioned in the Clarendon report, so it means it's one of the sort of upper ranking schools in England, although it doesn't have the reputation of some others. Nevertheless, there are some, apart from Charles Darwin and Sir Philip Sidney, there are other very notable pupils. Most of them seem to be sort of, or at least recently, comedians and satirists. So maybe the reason we know of Sir Philip Sidney is because of Michael Palin was an old boy. And I remember a Monty Python sketch making fun of Sir Philip Sidney. Andrew Irvine was part of the 1924 Everest exhibition. Sir Michael Heseltine, former Deputy Prime Minister, is an old boy. And Judge Jeffreys, the first Baron Jeffreys of Wem, better known as Judge Jeffreys, was an old boy. Other notable, Paul Foote, the journalist. Now, I didn't know that. Surprised somewhat. Richard Ingram's the founder of Private Eye. And indeed, what was Willie Rushton? Was he associated with Private Eye? Certainly Willie Rushton's an old boy as well. Sir Peter Davis, the chairman of Sainsbury's. Oh, when I was growing up, Simon D, the DJ. I mean, nobody knows who he is now, but we were very pleased that Simon D had studied there. The Crown, Omar Ali Bolkai, the Crown Prince of the Sultanate of Brunei. Many minor celebs, I suppose we ought to say. Minor celebs and, minor ambassadors and that type of thing. I think that probably sums the place up. Now, what I would say is that as a young boy, I got a job there, a weekend job as a commis chef. Now, I used to put like 500 pies in and out of the oven and things like that, and I used to make the cricket teas for the boys on a Saturday afternoon, and I'd wheel out these huge urns of tea for them, and I'd always say, loads of bromide in it today, boys. But I had fond memories of working there, yeah. Shrewsbury High School, which used to be Shrewsbury Girls High School, or Shrewsbury High School for girls, I should say. I can find absolutely no ghost stories related to the school, despite me instinctively feeling there should be some. Not least as it's almost adjacent to the old ear, nose and throat hospital, which again I can find no ghost stories related to. I suppose there is something of a sort of strange story related to it, and that is that during the 1970s, early 1970s, female pupils at the school were warned to stay well away from me. Yeah, can you believe it? Now, I understand there were some scurrilous rumours written inside the toilet cubicles at the girls' high school, and I can only assume that the head teacher not only read those but believed them. And you know, the truth is, I'm just a romantic. I was never the Casanova that I was claimed to be in the cubicles of the toilets of the girls' high school. Saint Winifred, or the legend of Saint Winifred, is about the Welsh saint Winifred. She was a daughter of a chieftain, Tegainl, a Welsh nobleman, and according to the legend, her suitor Caradog was enraged when she decided to become a nun and decapitated her. And a healing spring appeared where her head fell, which is now Holywell, the Holywell Shrine in North Wales. But they put Winifred's head back on her body, and she was restored to life. Caradog himself fell dead on the spot. So, yeah, as I say, it's believed that the shrine at Holywell is where the spring where this spring of water came from, and it's been a Catholic shrine ever since, very popular indeed. Now, the relationship with Shrewsbury goes back an awful long way. Some of her relics were said to be in the abbey in Shrewsbury. In addition, the school opposite at the rear entrance of Shrewsbury Cathedral, St Winifred's Convent School was started by the Irish Catholic Sisters of Mercy. In my time it was just a girls' school, but now it admits boys as well. And what can I say about them? The uniform was brown, so it wasn't quite as nice, attractive as the high school girls' uniform, but more so than the Priory girls' green uniform. And the Sisters of Mercy ruthlessly enforced the uniform rules, including that all the girls should wear a brown knickers or panties. Now something of a cult has grown up about Saint Winifred, particularly surrounding the a shrine in Holywell, where it's believed that those bathing in the waters will miraculously be cured of almost anything. And I've actually been there, and it's an absolutely wonderful place to go. It really is. Now, Rowley's house, it's probably the oldest, well, one of the oldest houses in Shrewsbury. It was the home of a merchant, a wool merchant named Rowley. In Tudor times, Shrewsbury was very rich from the wool trade, particularly from Wales, and so there were a lot of wool merchants. So I knew it as the museum, and I used to go in this museum as a child and frighten myself to death because there'd be all these floorboards would be creaking. I'd be the only person maybe on that floor or for a few floors, and the thing that used to get me the most was these suits of armour. But apparently it is meant to be haunted. A lady in fine period costumes been seen rested on a bed displayed on one of the upstairs. Now, I've never seen her, but she's meant to be there. It seems that maybe it was to do with a lover's tiff or something like that. This wonderful old black and white building is where the Empire Cinema used to be. And my life changed one day in the Empire Cinema. Yeah, there was a trailer on for Shaft, and they played Shaft's theme by Isaac Hayes, and I was completely blown away. Until then, I'd liked Gary Glitter and the Sweet. And I heard this, and I was completely sold on soul music ever since. And what a wonderful record to be transformed by it. This is the Yorkshire House pub. Now, that on Friday the 4th of April 1980, at around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the term modern soul was first coined in this pub. You see, I used to go drinking in the Yorkshire House with my soul friends, and we used to run a night that played this sort of modern soul music at the Oak Hotel. And I'd just been to Pep's record shop in Wolverhampton and bought some records. And for the first time, they had 1980 written on them. Up until then, we'd called this sort of music 70s. A branch of Northern Soul, but, this was 70s Northern Soul. But I said, we can't call it 70s anymore. Why don't we call it Modern Soul? And the rest is history. From this Rockers pub in Shrewsbury. Now, the Boathouse is a pub that's very dear to my heart, on the banks of the River Severn there. And by what is always called the Kingsland Bridge, but I know it as the Suspension Bridge. Why is it dear to my heart? Well, it's the first place I ever had a pint. Yeah, it's a pint of Whitbread mild for £1.10. I remember it very well indeed. And yeah, I used to go in as a young lad, too young, It's got a bit upmarket now, I have to say. Again, it's one of those places where it's hard not to imagine a ghost story about it, but I really can't find any. I remember the tall barman called Long John, and I'm sure he must haunt it in some way, but no, I can find no reference to it whatsoever. But, it's still a charming pub, if a little bit pricey and upmarket nowadays. I was confirmed at St Chad's Church and went on to become a server or altar boy at St Chad's Church. And I still attend it. Despite defining myself as a Muslim, I attend it when I'm in Shrewsbury. Well, I really hope you've enjoyed this vlog. And if you have, can you help me out a little? Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and then you'll be notified of future vlogs. But also hit the like button and make a comment. Because these seem to be what determine the YouTube algorithm, and I'm being really punished by it. So whatever help I can get from you is so appreciated. It really is. When I started this, I was going to do it this section, the real magic of Java. I was going to issue maybe every 2-3 months. Now it's happening maybe every 2 or 3 days. So yeah, if you hit the bell, you'll hear about it. And thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Really heartfelt thanks.